The normalization of weed has to be the biggest propaganda stunt in the last like 15, 20 years. Weed went from being looked at as like a Schedule I drug, so on the same level as CMOS damn near. When I was younger, people talked about weed like it was a really abusive drug. And then as I got older, for whatever reason, weed wasn't really looked at like a drug and more so self-care of some kind. I feel like there's two camps when it comes to weed. The ones that can be productive and functional, and then the ones that hit a wall when they smoke. I have a lot of friends that smoke weed, and a lot of them do just fine. They're able to work while high, play games while high, and even socialize while high. I, on the other hand, am not like that at all. When I smoke weed, I go into a kush coma, a stupor. I'm talking about I can't get up. I can't talk. I can't form a sentence. I can barely even think. And in the beginning, it was cool, but after a while, it starts to get in the way. I think weed is hella addictive and hella disruptive. Maybe not on the level of like alcohol and alcoholism, but it can do some damage to you for sure. I think the biggest one is just how big of a distraction weed is. Like, it can really just knock you off your pivot. When you start smoking weed at a younger age, I feel like it does more damage for sure. Like, I definitely feel like there's parts of my brain that I will never get back and is just completely fried at this point. And not to mention the anxiety that shit gave me. I'm talking about I be driving in my car and my heart's racing and I'm just sitting in the car just paranoid as hell for no fucking reason. I think we need that old weed stigma to be put on it again, because that shit is crazy. That shit hits way too hard now. The weed of today is not like how it was 20 years ago. All this alien galaxy gas. Like, what the fuck is that? That shit ain't weed. There's some other shit in that shit. And then when you smoke it, there's like black liquid coming out. What the fuck is that? That ain't my weed. And don't get me wrong, I'm not trying. If you smoke weed and you're able to be productive and functional on it, yo, more power to you. I'm talking about the ones that are smoking this shit thinking that they're supposed to be fine on it when in reality, this shit is making them struggle. Yo, put that shit down, yo. Lay off the weed.
Just say do it again, please.
Stay off the weed.
That shit also kills my appetite. I don't even know how that rumor started that weed makes you really hungry or gives you the munchies. It does for a little bit. When you become a chronic smoker, that shit absolutely annihilates your appetite. I lost so much weight smoking weed. Holy shit. I lost like 40, 50 pounds smoking weed. And you know it's bad when you start to look like you smoke weed. Like you smoked out. Lips black as hell. You skinny as shit. Not a good look, yo. And I don't know about y'all, but weed is one of the hardest things I've ever had to stop doing. Like, I remember when I was younger, one of the biggest things about weed is that it's impossible to get addicted. Whoever said that shit, me and you gonna have our ones, bruh. We gotta go fight. It took me years to stop smoking that shit. Years. That shit is just as addictive as any other drug. Like, it's right there with nicotine. And when you do stop smoking weed, when you're finally able to get over that hump, being sober feels like its own high. It feels good to be able to be coherent again and be able to form sentences and speak. It honestly makes you appreciate being sober that much more. And don't get me wrong, weed wasn't all bad. It did have its moments where I feel like I learned some shit about myself from it, whether that be my addictive personality or the innate desire to be so much more. I feel like things like that I wouldn't have really understood as early as I did. Because when I was smoking weed all day, sitting on the couch, growing a beard with delusions of grandeur. Ooh, it's a big word right there. Big word. The weed was holding me back, and eventually my desire for being ambitious outweighed the desire to smoke weed. So I had to make that change and stop, and I'm glad I did. But all that shit they told you about weed, about it being like a really chill thing to do and it's not really a drug, they lied.
That's a big step.
That shit is a drug like any other drug. And sometimes I feel like the government was in on it, because how did we go from locking people up for having a 3-5 to having a dispensary on every corner in a residential neighborhood? Like, literally, if you just go down my street, it's a liquor store and a dispensary in the same plot of land. Like, who the hell designed this? There's a dispensary and a liquor store before there's a 7-Eleven, before there's a grocery store. Nah, that's the government right there. That's their agenda. They're trying to keep you asleep, trying to keep you dumb. You know what I mean? Something's going on, yo. And I'm not biting that bullet no more. So as a reformed Kush debonair, I implore y'all to put the weed down just for a little bit. Take a tea break every once in a while if you still want to smoke it. But let's not normalize and act like this shit is normal. That shit is a drug, and it will fuck you up just like any other drug will. Stay smart out there, little niggas. I'm in BZ, signing out. Deuce.